All right, I'd like to welcome in our guest, my good friend, former teammate, Jamal Crawford. Jamal, how are you holding up, man?
Good. It's considering, obviously. It's been different challenges, obviously, with the pandemic and now everything we're dealing with right now. So considering those things, I'm doing all right. Family's safe and things. So just trying to take it one day at a time.
Tell me what your emotions were the first time that you saw the video of George Floyd being murdered.
To be honest with you, it broke my heart on so many levels. Like it was just like he was begging for his mom, who's dead, by the way, who passed on, and he's begging for his mom, and he said it. He's begging for his kids. You know, he urinate on himself. Like I don't know how to swim well, right? So there's been one time in my life where I almost drowned when I was a kid. And for those 3-4 seconds where you're just gasping for air, you're just gasping for help, for somebody to save you, right? I did it for 3 seconds and it traumatized me for life. I'm still thinking about it. He couldn't breathe for 9 minutes, right? Like in the guy's face, the officer's face, where he has his knee on his neck and he's like kind of smirking, his hands are in his pocket. Like it was a modern day lynching. And I think that's why you're seeing everything, because other people, things have happened over the years and, you know, we've been outraged, but I don't think we've seen a modern day lynching, like where there's camera phones there. Think about the Rodney King thing, right? So when that happened, there was a camera there and there were riots in LA and he didn't die. Like he got his ass beat, right? He really got his ass beat and it was wrong on every level, but he didn't die. And there was riots then. Like we actually watched somebody get killed in front of our eyes. Like we saw somebody lose their life and it just broke my heart.
I mean, this isn't obviously the first time that this has happened.
Right.
And if you, this has been said on social media a ton this week. You know, if you look back over the last, 50, 60 years since the civil rights movement, these things have happened. Police brutality, police killing Black people. It's happened. The difference is now we all have cell phones and we're seeing it now. And it's disgusting. I'm wondering with like your kids, obviously, mine are super young and they're white. And so their perspective is very different. What are those conversations like with your kids right now?
The questions they had were the news was on, and me and my wife are trying to navigate that, right? Because there's no playbook on how to kind of tell them exactly what's going on and how to kind of navigate that. Because they just see people as people. They have friends in school of every color, white, Black, Latinos, like they have friends of every race. So it's like, well, what's going on? Why are these people upset? Why are the police doing this? And so we try to tell them that not all police, but there are some people in general who don't see people with color as equals. And it's just an issue. And she's like, well, are all police bad? I'm like, not at all. You know what I mean? Are all people bad? I'm like, not at all. It's just certain individuals who, kind of look at people like that, like they're less than them or they're less than. And I just want them to know they're not less than anybody. We all, bleed the same way. We're all human. We all have the human side to us. And so we kind of try to break it down as simple as possible for them like that. We don't get too deep into it. They do know that George Floyd obviously died and got killed. But we have to let them know that all police aren't bad. It's just, certain individuals out there sometimes who, make bad decisions because, they see Blacks as less than them.
Is that conversation different with your oldest?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like it's a more mature conversation for sure. How old is Eric now?
Eric's 21.
21,
so
okay.
Eric's 21. He's grown, right? And then you have JJ, who's 9. And then you have London. When I said that conversation, I'm thinking of younger ones. So JJ's 9. And I can still have even a more mature conversation with him than the 7 and 4-year-old, right? Because they're like, they're just trying to grasp this whole thing. But JJ and Eric's like outraged, right? Because, that could be him. That could be me. Funny, well, not a funny story. Story kind of on topic is one of my friends works in the league. He's Jewish, and I've known him forever. And he texted me when this first started, and he was like, I used to always wonder why, when we got pulled over for whatever reason, you would ask the officer, like, hey, is it okay if I reach and get my wallet? He said, I've never even thought about that, right? And like, I've never even thought about that. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, because for me and my wife, she'll tell you when I'm in a car driving, I see a police officer in the area, I get nervous. I get really, really nervous. She's like, you're driving like you have, drugs in the car you're selling. I'm like, that's how I feel. I feel so nervous because I don't know what can happen based on who's pulling me over or what that person's beliefs are or whatever. You know what I mean? So I always get nervous. It's not like I'm just getting a ticket and that's it, right? It's like anything can happen. And now it's being filmed and things are still happening. Like, it's just, I saw an image earlier where a police officer had a gun and this guy was protesting peacefully. He had his son on his shoulders and there's a gun pointed right at him. Like, it's
crazy photo.
Yeah, you seen that one, Tom?
Yeah, it's a crazy photo. It's gonna be on magazine covers and books and everything like that. Jamal, how do you think, JJ and I have talked about this a little bit, and I've talked about this with some of the people at the protests that I've been to in LA. For white people right now, in my opinion, the most important thing that white people can do is just listen and support and almost just sort of take a step back and listen to activists and also just listen to people of color sort of share their experiences. If you were in like the locker room right now, how would you've always sort of been the vet leader, a guy that sort of the younger guys look to. What's sort of like your message to like the younger generation, white and black?
To learn the history. You know what I mean? Like, people are seeing and people are seeing the result, right? They're seeing the reaction to what happened to George Floyd, but that's been happening for so long. Like, blacks have been fighting different things for hundreds of years, like even before I was born, right? So it's like, now you're seeing all that frustration and all that venom and all that like come out at this time period. George Floyd has been happening all over, you know what I mean? And I would just say, just learn kind of the history to educate, because not all white people are bad and not all black people are bad. It's not a black versus white thing. It's like a everybody versus racism thing. And just to be seen as an equal, you know what I mean? Like with JJ, I never looked at him like, oh, this white guy, and he never looked at me like this black guy. That's my teammate. That's my brother. Like, that's all it was. Like, and I think people just need to view it like that and look at it like if it happened to you. If George Floyd was a white guy and that officer was a black guy, and that black officer had his knee on his neck for 9 minutes, how would you feel? Right. So it's just about putting yourself in somebody else's shoes before actually judging the reaction of what's happening.
Yeah, that comes down to empathy, which some people are lacking, and some people, especially in leadership right now, are lacking. We're going to get to that in a second. I wanted to ask Jamal, though, and Tom, you can chime in on this question too. Obviously, the global pandemic and COVID-19 has a good deal to do with the outrage, the visceral reaction, sort of the protests and the rioting. It's probably a factor. But what is different? What is different about George Floyd? And you kind of alluded to it with us just watching him be murdered. But what is different about this that has caused this reaction?
I think just looking back, like, don't forget the Ahmaud situation just happened, right? Sure. Like that, it was fresh off of that.
Breonna Taylor.
Like these incidents all just are these lynchings really just happened like back to back to back over a short time period. So like you said, it's been happening before, but I think that was like the straw that broke the camel's back from the standpoint, like, hey, think about this. The officer wasn't even arrested when this happened. It took social media to put pressure on people who put pressure on people who put pressure on people who finally said, okay, we'll arrest this guy. Like, and then the other 3 officers, have they been booked yet?
Nope.
No.
It took them 3 days to arrest Derek Chauvin, the one who did it. They had to burn down the police station in Minneapolis for this. Just to
get an arrest.
Yeah.
Like, just to get an arrest. And then the fact that they were whooping Mr. Floyd's ass before that. There's other videos that's come out. They were whooping his ass in the car before that. Like, and then Chauvin, they knew each other. Like, they had done I think I saw security or something at a club or something for the last like 10 years. So they knew each other. He knew exactly what he was doing when he was killing him. You can't put your knee on anybody's neck and not think they're going to continue to breathe. Like, that's just like, come on. And the officers telling people to get away and back up, and nobody stopped it. I saw another video, Tom, I don't know if you've seen it. There's another officer who put their knee on somebody's neck, and the other officer on the ground got him off him real quick, like almost like
recently. Yeah, I think it was in Philadelphia. It was a couple of days ago.
If any one of those 4 officers does that, or any one of the other 3 does that, we're not even here talking about this, right? Like, so it's mind blowing. It's amazing, actually.
Well, I do think I want to get your take on this, both of your takes on this, but I do think one thing over the last few days, I mean, it's really escalated nationally, even in the last 48 hours. But to that point, Jamal, like we're seeing videos all over the place of both officers escalating and then also de-escalating. And so, there's the example of in Flint, Michigan, for example, or in Camden, New Jersey, where the officers de-escalated the situation and they marched with the protesters, and they emphasized, to JJ's point about empathy, they empathized with the anger, and they just said, like, we're going to join you, versus in New York, for example, where there's videos of officers driving over protesters or sticking their knees on their neck. And so it is sort of a case by case basis. The one other thing I wanted to add in, is obviously with COVID, it's been 100,000 Americans who've died in the last 2.5 months, which is just an insane number. And that's been disproportionately affected Black and brown people.
For sure.
Because of systemic issues, and so this is, talk about a straw that breaks the camel's back. There's all kinds of issues with the police and the criminal justice system, but this has all been, I think at least everything is connected.
It definitely has to be connected. And just the fact, like you said, COVID affects Black Americans more than anybody else, right? So us knowing that and still going out protesting right there on the front line, like, that's how passionate we are about what happened to George Floyd, what happened to Bryant, what happened to Ahmaud, like, and everybody else that we're not naming. Because think about it, these ones were captured on camera, or some of them were on camera. What about all the ones that weren't captured, they got away with, that we were like, there's no way. And like we see a court deposition, we're like, there's no way this could have went like this, or there's no way this cop just did this. Like, how many other lynchings, murders, bad things happen to people that are not being reported or over time because there wasn't a camera there?
To your point, Jamal, about the camera, Ahmaud Arbery's was not a national story. This happened so long ago.
It happened in February. Yeah.
And for months, the local community was trying to get these guys charged. And the only reason that the tape was released is because they had met with the defense attorney and he had collected everything. And there was all these rumors going around in the community. So he released the tape to dispel these rumors. He actually released the tape to dispel the rumors. That's the only reason. And then once it got out, obviously, there was another sort of visceral reaction to this. Well, I just had this thought, and just in relation to COVID and Black people being murdered by police. With COVID, our entire life got disrupted. Everybody's life got disrupted in some form. Down to being able to go to school, being able to go to work, what you can and can't eat, your social life, everything, who you can't see, people can't even go to funerals, weddings, whatever, all this stuff, your whole life disrupted. What wasn't disrupted was police being able to kill Black people. Think about that.
It's unbelievable. So think about it from a Black point of view, right? So we're fighting COVID. We're fighting unemployment. We're fighting society, some, not all, but some in general. Now we're fighting racism, right? All at once, like back to back. I'm 40 years old. I've never seen a time period in my life where it was like this, where we're fighting all these battles at the same time. Like, I've never seen this ever. So it's like we're living in a historic moment in real time. Like, they're going to talk about this 50 years from now, 60 years from now. Like, this is the shit that we'll be talking about for sure. And it's just amazing. It's like, it's amazing. And every day, like every single night, I pray that all of it stops. I pray for this just to stop. Because it's like a bad dream. It's like a bad movie. Then you got Trump. Like, he's just, I don't even have words for him. Like, he's on a whole nother level. Like, I'm sure, I never met him. I'm sure even before he got the presidency, he was one of those guys who thought his shit didn't stink, who thought, I mean, he's a, multi-millionaire, maybe billionaire at the time, I don't know, but very well off. So I'm sure he thought that names on buildings all over. Now having a presidency, you're seeing whatever he was heightened by times 10, times 20, right? So we're seeing the absolute, for him, all his, in his mind, powers.
All his demons.
Yeah.
All his demons.
All of it.
Which he's always shown us who he is.
He absolutely
There's never been a moment in time where he didn't show us who he is.
No, absolutely.
I was actually, when I watched last night, what happened in DC was so disturbing, and watching it in real time, I looked over at Chelsea and I said, you have to remember with Trump, he has never developed the intellect past like a 13-year-old white male adolescent schoolyard bully. So you can't think there's this grand scheme sometime. Everything he does is reactionary. And so last night I turned to her and I said, he's only doing this because they reported that he was hiding out in a bunker tweeting last night. And so now he has to come out and be the tough guy.
Which he was, by the way.
JJ.
Which was the reason why.
Which he was hiding out in a bunker.
Yeah.
He literally tweeted something about the domination, and I'm summarizing. He did use the word domination. We put things back in place, and thank you, President Trump. He's thanking himself in a tweet. He's using the word dominate like he's playing a game, right? Like he's playing a game with American citizens. I told them before you came on, he had the Bible. He flipped it up like it was a prop. He was looking like, oh yeah, it works like that, right? I'm like, this guy is out. He's been out of control. He's been out of his mind. But what's really scary is the fact that so many people voted for him to put him in this position that have obviously some of the same viewpoints that he sold to everybody to get in the position he's in.
Well, yes. And so the lack of leadership is really troubling. So on one hand, let's relate this back to police brutality. And you've seen this bear out in the last week, where you've seen police chiefs that are leaders, and you've seen police chiefs that have fostered a culture of racism in their police departments. And you've seen that dichotomy at the local level. Unfortunately, we have the same shit happening at the national level, and there's no one within that administration that has the balls to do anything about it. And that's another sad part.
Yeah, he loves that, first off, right? So like with the COVID, Dr. Fauci, right? Trump would say something about COVID and, it'll be gone, it'll disappear. One day we'll wake up and thin air will be disappear. I've seen CNN, there's like a timeline of his different, statements about COVID. And you can see Dr. Fauci like, I wouldn't do that, right? Like Trump's calling all the sports commissioners, we need to open up. We need to open up. We're like, we're going to follow, science and the doctors who actually know what they're talking about. We can't just follow you saying open up, thinking about the economy. People are going to die. People are going to die if we open up fully. Like just because it's invisible doesn't mean it's not there. And that's how he's treating it. He's not doing anything with a mask on. Have you seen Trump with a mask on yet?
No, he won't wear one. He won't. He doesn't. He which is putting potentially millions of people's lives at risk.
Yes. He may not be the one affected, but he can affect so many people. Yeah. Right. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's proven that through his actions.
But I think that gets back to both of your points about empathy with him. Is he does not care about anybody but himself. And he's never shown that he's ever cared about anybody but himself. And so even his reaction to this, it fluctuates between divisiveness, which he likes sort of sparking the along racial divide, along political divides, everything like that. But also he has, we were talking about this when he called George Floyd's brother. And George Floyd's brother said, he didn't even let me speak. he gets on the phone with him, and he just and you could tell that he's only calling the guy's brother because he wants to try to spin into a positive about himself, but he actually fundamentally doesn't care about a murdered American. It means nothing to him.
Right.
And so, yeah,
there's no like human element to him, right? Like you said, anybody I mean, if George Floyd's brother wants to talk to a leader at a community center, they will listen. Like, this guy's the president of the United States, and he won't listen to him. He won't let him vent his frustration. He won't let him ask questions, whatever he wants to get off his chest or whatever's on his mind or his heart. He just kept cutting them off. Like, no, we're doing this, or no, save it. Hold on, we're going to talk about something else. Like, where's the human fabric to him? Where's the human side to him? And that's what it's lost. I don't know if it was lost or it was never there, but he's like you said, he's like a 13-year-old kid, right? Who just, I'm taking my ball, I'm going home, and none of you guys can ever play with it again unless I'm the only one playing for an hour by myself. And you know what I mean? Like, he's unbelievable.
Jamal, while we're on this topic, what does leadership look like to you? You've obviously been around some high level leaders, but what does that look like to you? The best leaders you've been around, what does that look like?
To me, the best leaders I've been around, they accept responsibility. They accept the challenge. They're not divisive. They're making sure everybody's on one accord. Everybody's on the same page. We're all pulling the same direction. I think great leaders think about the greater good, right? Of whatever the task is of people. They think about the greater good of people before they think about their own agenda. I always feel like, I hate to even call him the president, but the guy that, has the highest title in office right now, I feel like it's always his own agenda. It's always about him. Like, when have you ever seen a president say thank you to himself at any time, a press conference, a tweet, whatever, right? Like, this guy is just, he's so divisive. He's so, and the part with doing that is, the dangerous part is, he makes others that see his vision feel that way. And they stick their chest out even more, and they start doing even more dangerous shit. They start doing even more, they really push the envelope on it. They feel like they're kind of above the law and protected in a way because the president is saying this and kind of encouraging that.
His version or idea of what leadership looks like is so outdated, and it doesn't serve anyone but himself. And so this tough guy, this macho guy, this combative guy, that doesn't serve anyone but him. And this is not an opinion. Studies have shown this. The best leaders are humble, they're empathetic, and they're compassionate. And those are the three words that I always keep coming back to.
For sure. And I think great leaders also, they can take advice. They can listen, right? There's no big me's and little u's. I think they were once great followers at some point in their life because they learned, how to kind of see things from different aspects and not just say, that's like dictatorship, right? Like, I'm just going to dictate what's going on. And you guys are going to fall in line. That's not a leader, right? That's not a leader at all. And it's watching his press conferences. If somebody says something to kind of rattle him a little bit or get him off course, he will forget the whole script and he won't answer their questions anymore. Like, he'll just say, I saw one and JJ was cracking up. He was like, he got rattled and he did his finger and they said, we still have a question. He said, no, you. And he went and pointed somebody in the back. He was like, I'm done talking to you. You can rattle him easy. Like, he is something. I'm sure presidents and leaders from other countries look at him like, this guy he's outrageous. He's outrageous. I couldn't imagine dealing with him on an everyday or any kind of level.
Tommy, is there anything we're missing here on leaders?
Well,
and even with political leaders.
Well, this is my question. This is the question I was thinking. I mean, I've thought about this a lot over the last 3 years, but I was really thinking about last night after watching the thing in DC. And it's a question for both of you, but it's also really a question for our listeners, is how can you objectively look at where we are as a country? So, like, take yourself out of it for a second, because people have had personal successes, they've had good things, they've had kids, they've had things happen in their life that are positive things over the last 3 years. All of us have had that. But how can you look at where we are as a country on June 2nd, 2020 versus where we were on June 2nd, 2016 and say that we're in a better place? I'm thinking that where I'm like, there's helicopters flying over, there's a pandemic, I'm actually struggling to know. I'm struggling to think about how things could possibly be worse. And I hate to say that because it can always get worse. We didn't predict this 2 weeks ago, but how can it possibly be worse than this? You know,
Tommy, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was playing Tupac. I was going back playing old Tupac albums. 1993, 1994, 1995, 1996, 93, 96 range, right? It literally sounded like he made the album last week for what we're dealing with now. It's unbelievable. Like, I was like, this is crazy. Like, it sounded like he made this album last week. So that tells me, okay, that's 27, 26, 25 years of us in a same kind of roundabout way, kind of be in the same position. This shit still applies. He made this album 25 years ago about these same problems, about the same things that are going on, the same things. And we're still dealing with it in 2020.
Yeah. The Civil Rights Act was signed in 1964. Obviously, there were a ton of riots in the 60s, turmoil all around, 2 assassinations, Martin Luther King Jr., Robert Kennedy, the Vietnam War, race riots, all types of shit happening. I mean, you know, the saying history repeats itself. I don't know that we as a society collectively have learned from that. And look, a lot of people are saying this, and I want to get your reaction to this, Jamal. A lot of people are saying this is a white problem. This is a problem that white people have to address, that white people have to sort of step up and carry this torch with black people. And I want to get your reaction to that.
I don't think it's a white problem, but I think the white community can help a lot. Just from the standpoint of standing next to a person who's going through it. Because racism, it has no colors, right? If you're black and you're racist towards white, that doesn't mean it's right. Like, it's still wrong. It's like the human side of it. And I think the best way that whites can kind of help is standing next to protesting with peaceful protests with blacks. You know what I mean? Standing next to it to show it's just as important to them as anybody else. Like, I saw a thing of all lives matter. All lives do matter. But until black lives matter, then all lives matter isn't possible. Because, like it or not, some people out there, like it or not, blacks are part of the human race, right? So all lives matter, yeah, that's true. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about black lives matter. Until black lives matter just as much as whites, or just as much to whites, then that's where the change really happens.
You wouldn't, there's all sorts of memes about this on social media, but like the one Chelsea told me, like, you wouldn't go to a breast cancer conference and run in and start yelling about colon cancer. That's not why the fuck we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
We're here for breast cancer.
Like, we know.
Like, what we're talking about right now is black lives. That's what the fuck we're talking about right now.
That's what we're talking about. Because they're the ones who are being lynched right now. We're the ones that are, being shot at for jogging. We're the ones dealing with all the bullshit right now. Yeah, we know all lives matter. One life's not more important than the next. We understand that. But we need the other side to understand that as well. So until black lives matter to the ones who don't think so, then, like I said, if one person's not free, if everybody's not free, one person's not. So even if one person's like, yeah, I'm free. No, you're not. Until everybody is free, then we're all free. Like, so all lives, yeah, matter, but that's not what we're talking about. Black lives matter.
I would add one thing to this. You know, one thing that the listeners can do to sort of help here, if you're sort of thinking about where you can help, there are a bunch of different websites, and we can tweet them out afterwards and everything like that to sort of push people in the right direction. But there are a lot of pieces of legislation that can be pushed to fix some of these issues. You know, there's things like banning chokeholds in all 50 states. Like right now, I think only 28 states in the country ban chokeholds. And there are things like that. You wouldn't even believe some of the things that are legal for officers to do. And it'd be things that you wouldn't want them to do to they should never be doing to anybody. It shouldn't even be a debate. Yeah. And so one of the things about how much attention this has gotten over the last week is educating people of all races and backgrounds and everything like that about making sure they know what is going on in this country. You know, you have to be aware both of like the plight of your neighbor, but then also just of of how you can make a difference.
Absolutely. And I think voting, that piece is so important. Like, it's so important, not only nationally, but locally. Getting people, you know what I mean, that you believe in or you believe can see things equally, or, you know, whatever you're fighting for, like, those things are so important. So until we vote on every level, locally, nationally, you know, that's what the change really is going to have to happen. Like you said, we can vote some of those laws out, but we all have to get there and vote.
And by the way, I just want to make this clear. I'm a registered Democrat. When Jamal says vote, he's not telling you to vote for Democrats. This is not a liberal Republican partisan issue. This is just vote. Register to vote and vote.
And vote. Exactly.
And vote for the right person. Right. And vote for the right person who you think is going to deliver the best policies.
Exactly.
Well, also, when you're thinking about voting, it's not just who you're voting for president. It's up and down the line. It's Senate, it's Congress. Yes, it's in your community. Yeah. It's at the local level, because the local level is really where a lot of these things are settled.
Sure.
And, you know, I think Trump is particularly egregious, but in general, a lot of these police issues, and they've been going back, they've happened, to Jamal was saying earlier, they've happened under every president, Democrat and Republican, and those things can be fixed. It's never going to be fixed, but they can be improved. They can be improved significantly by voting on a local level for district attorneys and mayors who are supportive of these changes, systemic changes.
Absolutely. And that's where the change really starts, on the ground level, on the foundation. But we can't change it if we don't get out there and vote.
The Pelicans asked Lonzo and I to be part of this social justice leadership council, along with some of the Saints guys. Demario Davis is the Saints rep right now. You know, we're going to have some execs from both teams, and we're going to try to do some stuff locally in our communities. And Lonzo yesterday, the first thing he says is, we got to make sure every guy on our team is registered to vote. We got to make sure every guy on the Saints is registered to vote. That's the very first thing. And then, and I'll own this. Like, I feel like I have to do, to Tommy's point, I have to do a better job personally of knowing what's going on at the local level, because that affects the day-to-day life as much as anything else. And if we're really gonna change the criminal justice system and the way that police operate, that's at the local level.
Yep, that's exactly where it's at. And granted, like I talked about Trump, I'm not blaming him for all of those problems, obviously, because a lot of it, like you said, is local. So that's where we have to get on the ground level and vote locally in your community, in your district, in your, you know what I mean? And kind of see the change that you want to see, and see the people who, Republican, Democrat, whatever, see the people that have the vision that you think can carry out those things, can make your community better, a safer place for everybody.
Have either of you gone? I think Tommy has. Have you gone to a protest, Jamal?
No, I haven't. I haven't gone to one yet. I've watched, some of them, but we're actually going to do something later this week, and we don't have all the details dialed in yet. But we're going to have some type of discussion forum / town hall type of thing, where it's basically about that. But we don't want to say it's a protest. It's not really a rally, but just for people in our community to know that we're on their side as well. Nobody's above this. So yeah, we're going to do something this week.
That's great.
I went Saturday, and I went yesterday in LA. And the one I went to yesterday in LA was great. It was very peaceful. It was on Sunset Boulevard. And this is to the point about police de-escalating. There were a ton of officers there, but they went in with a purpose of not roughing people up and listening to the message, and people left. People protested for a few hours, and they said their piece, and then they went home. And I don't think we still need to make these changes, but I think in terms of not having our cities kind of broken and burned down, it's really important for the officers to hear these messages rather than immediately become defensive and want to fight.
What's interesting? The rallies I've seen and the protests I've seen, the best ones have been where one of the officers says, "You know what? I'm walking with you guys." Everybody starts cheering. They start walking. It's like, that's all we want, is for somebody to walk with us, to say, okay, we see it's wrong as well. What happened? It's not a reflection of all police officers. It's not a reflection of any one thing. It's a reflection of what happened in that situation, it was wrong. We're walking with you guys. So the best protests and rallies, the ones I've seen have been the most nonviolent and truly like peaceful, is when the officer is right there taking a knee. If he's right there taking a walk, he's right there talking to the people so they can hear him. And then, they see somebody's with them that has the same vision.
Totally agree.
I went Sunday night here in Brooklyn. I went with Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot, who plays for the Nets. I played with him on the Sixers. A friend of his, another friend of mine, and actually, Tommy, Sean Feeney went too. It was the five of us. We got there right as sort of a procession started, leaving Barclays. We walked down Atlantic Avenue. It was surreal. And, you've got cars stopping on the other side of Atlantic, honking their horns in support. We made a turn to loop back towards Atlantic, and we went straight through a neighborhood, people on their stoops and hanging out their windows, clapping and with signs. And you just feel like there's something there. There's something there. There's real change coming. And in our group, we when everybody got back to Barclays, one group splintered off and went towards the Manhattan Bridge or the Brooklyn Bridge to go into Manhattan. We all know what happened. We all know what happened there. And then the rest, we kind of stayed at Barclays for a while. There was another large group that was still demonstrating there. And then we kind of peeled out of there after a while. But by and large, they've been peaceful. And the other amazing thing to me, and I said this to somebody this morning at the gym, what's not being covered is these rallies and protests happening in small towns across the country, in blue states, red states, it doesn't matter. People across the country want to see the system change. I truly believe that. Now, there's a minority that doesn't, and I believe it's the minority, but people across the country want to see change.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, this is an historic moment in real time. I've never seen it where it's just, you turn on the news, you're like, the LA riots, or, this happened in this place. This is the whole country, right? And in some places in the world as well, like, that are like, no, this is enough. Enough is enough, right? And like I said, it's not a black versus white thing. It's everybody versus racism. It's a right and wrong thing. And that's what everybody's fighting for, because we can all relate to that in the simplest form. We can relate to what's right and what's wrong. And
that's a great point.
Yeah. There's a video I saw earlier today of people in Amsterdam. It's like thousands of people in Amsterdam rallying, watching the footage. And I saw that of people in Australia watching the footage of the stuff last night. And you realize, not to be too overdramatic, but the whole world is watching what's happening to us, and we have to act accordingly. That people look to America for a lot of things, and this is a police violence is a uniquely American problem. This doesn't exist, and this doesn't exist even close to the same scale in other sort of developed countries. And so this is something that has been needed to be addressed for a while. And I think my hope would be that after this, whenever, we can sort of get through this, there's real change that happens.
Yeah.
Jamal, I wanted to let you have an opportunity to just give your thoughts on this dichotomy of the rioters versus the protesters, and how I think most sensible people are able to sort of separate the two.
Right.
But obviously the coverage and the reaction to the two things happening sometimes get sort of molded into one.
Right. So there's definitely a difference, as we all know. But what's interesting to me is that most of the stuff that was kind of going off or popping off there at the rallies and the protests was somebody white did it. Like, I was blown away by that, right? Because they're dressed up, you can't really see, and they're like almost starting more divisiveness, starting more of a war, so to speak, right? And it's just, and sometimes we're on the wrong side. Most of the times we're on the wrong side of that. Like, it's our mayor tweeted out the other day, right? Mayor Durkin, she was like, just let you guys know that most of the protests that have had problems, the non-peaceful ones, have been because somebody white started it. Like, where are these bricks coming from? Where are they coming from? Like, it's just amazing to me. And there's a total different thing. There's a peaceful protest, and then there's the riots, right? Where it's like, okay, we're going to ignite some shit. We're going to ignite some shit, and hopefully the blacks have to pay for it one way or another, either through jail, either through mace, either through, gas bombs, either through whatever. It's just, man, we're fighting a lot of battles right now. We're fighting a lot of fucking battles right now. And it's like, you can go so many different ways with it, but how do you channel all that anger and still be controlled? It's almost like you ask all these human elements and the humans to be controlled, right? But trained police officers in certain situations are panicking. They're the trained professionals in that, in that area, in that space. But these non-trained civilians are the ones kind of paying the price for it, especially blacks. And it's fucked up. It really is.
I saw that firsthand on Saturday with the white people starting it. And I got out of there before it got too crazy. I mean, for people that know LA, they burned down a couple blocks on Melrose, all the stores on Fairfax and Melrose, which is sort of like one of the commercial kind of younger hubs of the city are completely destroyed right now, which is close to where I live and where one of the protests was. But the protest I was at for the first 2.5 hours, it was started by these Black Lives Matter activists, and it was completely peaceful and well run and just exactly what you want from a protest, basically. And as things started to escalate, and this is to my point about, I think the police on Saturday in particular out here did a bad job of de-escalating things. But when you look at who's breaking windows and who's running into stores and everything like that, it was not the same people that were leading the rally in the park. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but it's a thing you can just see firsthand when you go to these things.
And it's not all whites. Like it's not about that. But there's certain ones who are like, no, this is not going to happen. It's not going to be peaceful. We're going to cause divisiveness. We're going to fuck some shit up. I saw a clip today, and there were certain whites that went to this protest. There were whites who were so mad that a peaceful protest was going on. They went to protest the protest. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, they went to really, like, no, you guys can't protest. No, fuck that. It is what it is, and this is how it's going to be. Like, it's just, it's a movie, man. It's a bad movie. Yeah.
It's all a distraction. I mean, it's a distraction from what the agenda should be. Jamal, right. You said it as perfectly and as sort of simply as you can put it. It's a right versus wrong issue. That's all it is. And the people that have this agenda, they're distracting from a moral issue. They're distracting from a human rights issue. And all that noise is a distraction because, at least to me, they're fucking uncomfortable.
Right. And racism,
yeah.
And they're pushing this out and they're teaching this encouraging this because racism, you're not born a racist. You're taught that. You were taught to be a racist. You were taught early on, if that's how you grew up, okay, black is fucked up. Don't mess with black people. They're less than you. If you're taught that, nobody comes out a racist. Right? So it's like, and you're pushing it and teaching other generations who are going to start thinking that's okay and that's not okay. And it won't ever be okay.
Jamal, I want to, man, we just fucking went 43 minutes. Like fucking, that was, you know what I just thought of? I'm going to edit this out. I just thought of, literally as we were talking here, I remember when we lost to Portland and I had to do the podcast. That was when I was doing the weekly podcast. And like you came on, we did it the very next day. I came to your condo.
One of the best podcasts I've ever done in my life.
One of the best podcasts I've ever done. It was so real. It was so real.
It was
therapeutic. Right? It was therapeutic. Oh my God.
It was therapeutic. Like it was no, obviously if any other media outlet at that time had asked you to talk about that game, you're like, fuck no, I don't want to. Same with me. Right. But both of us were experiencing the same fucking thing. We both had the same pain from losing that series and losing that game and the way we lost. And so it was great. I felt better after talking. Like I felt better after you left. I was like, man, today's going to be all right. Right. So it just.
Obviously, you and I are experiencing different things going through this. I think we both feel it in a moral way, but how you're experiencing this through your lens as a black person and my lens as a white person, it just, unfortunately, it will never be the same. And that's sad.
Yeah. And for me personally, like, doing camps, working with kids so many times, I've never once in my life said, oh, this white kid is not as good as this black kid, or I don't like him as much, or whatever. I don't even do it with wealth. Like, oh, this guy is wealthy, so I'm going to talk to him more. This guy's not wealthy, I can't talk to him. Like our gender, any of that shit. Like you are who you are. It's your character, who you are. You're a good guy, you're a good guy. You're a good lady, you're a good lady. You're bad, you're bad. Or, you got work, you're work in progress, whatever. It's not like I'm not going to treat you the same because of this or that. And that's what's fucked up about it, because we've been living with this forever.
All right, Jamal, if you guys are cool with it, I want to talk a little basketball. I know there's a lot of serious stuff going on in the world, but I can't have you on the pod and not talk at least a little basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. Basketball is my happy place. So let's jump right into that. Hey, what are you guys going to do? How's this bubble going to work? Me and Tommy are talking about a little bit. How's this going to work? How's that work? What's the plan on this?
I think Tommy, it sounds like they're voting on it this week.
That's what it seems like. I mean, don't ask me.
I mean, I basically, the last podcast we did, which was, whatever, with Shay, it was like 12 days ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. I basically said what is now the plan that they're voting on, because that was pretty much the most likely scenario from the jump. I think, this is what they had been talking about, at least from people I'd talked to for 6 to 8 weeks. The thing for me is I'm on Zion's team, and the NBA wants Zion to be a part of this.
Yeah, I read that.
So bad. And no, Brian, I think it was Brian Windhur said this on a podcast or an interview or something, but it's true. It's 100% true. This is not taking away anything from Memphis, but if we had stayed healthy, I think we had the best chance to get the 8th seed. We were playing good basketball. Obviously Zion was playing spectacular. Brandon Zoe was, on a 3-month run of playing unbelievable basketball. All the schedule was getting easier. Everything was trending in the right way for us. And then the season got suspended. Jamal, what was, I haven't even asked you this question. You and I, we text, but what was this year like not playing and being on the outside?
It was, well, first off, it was shock, to be honest with you. I was shocked. I'm like, okay, I can't get a contract offer from anybody. I thought, everybody's like, oh, the 50-point game. And yeah, that's one thing. But that month, I averaged, this is my highest score month of my career. I averaged 31 points off the bench. And we won half the games in the month of April. Shortened month, of course. But I thought, because you know how it is, Jay, as you get older in your career and further in your career, like, hey, we want this to be your role, kind of mentor and this and that. Well, for me, we went from thinking we were going to make a playoff run to Ryan Anderson's not playing, Trevor Ariza and Tyson Chandler are gone the first month, and all of a sudden we're tanking the first month of the season, right? So whether we say tanking or not, we're rebuilding or whatever. We're letting young guys play. So I went through that whole process, and that's tough, being away from my family for the first time, and then actually playing. I'm like, oh, shock still hoop. I averaged 30 for the month. I'm like, okay, I'll get off for this summer. Doesn't happen. Talk to some teams, but nothing serious at all. So you go through that, and now you're working out, but you're working out almost like, am I working out for no reason? Because you know how it is. You can work out and stay in shape, and then there's a whole different mindset. Okay, season's about to start. I'm really ramping it up now. And it's you fight those battles almost man, what went that wrong that I couldn't even, be on somebody's bench giving tutelage, giving good advice or what I see or whatever. And so for me, that was tough. But the flip side of it was I was able to spend time with my family this year because we were separate last year. Nobody knows this. Every week I flew home. Every off day we had, I flew home from Phoenix to Phoenix to Seattle every single week. And so I caught up on a lot of time. I started taking my daughter to recitals and stuff while I thought I was watching League Pass, right? So I kind of cut out basketball watching it as much. And I haven't watched a full game since Kobe passed, to be honest with you. Something left me at that point. But yeah, so anyways, that was a good thing of it. I was able to go to all my son's basketball tournaments and everything. So I just wish I could have ended on my terms if that's the end of it. I didn't know that would be my last game. I'm thinking we're celebrating Dirk's last game in Dallas, right? I didn't know that'd potentially be my last game as well. I would have, threw my jersey in the crowd or did something crazy if I knew that was it.
You did do something crazy.
Yeah, but
if it was the last game. Would you have right? You had 50 or 51?
51 off the bench, yeah.
It's a pretty good as those things go.
If that's the ending, that was a great ending. They couldn't have ended any better. Only Kobe has scored more in his last game, and he planned his exit, right? Like, I didn't know it was my last game. So, yeah, if that's the case, I mean, I definitely want to be around the game, whether front office or, broadcasting or commentating around the game. Somehow, some way, I love the game too much not to. But you just almost, when you played a long time as well. When you put that much in the game, you would think you kind of get a chance to say bye on your own terms, however that is. I didn't need a farewell tour, but at least I would have known it was my last game. That would have been really cool if that's the case.
I know how much you love the game. You love the game as much or more than anyone I've played with. That's a fact. I've said that many times. Yeah, you love the game. Going through that this year, did that affect your love for the game? Did that change at all? Is it different now?
It changed. Yeah, it changed in the regard that not my actual love for the game, but how I approached it. So, for example, I may need to work out, but I need to work out my son as well. I put him priority. I'm like, well, I know I can work out at a different time. He's going through his journey. I'll work him out, right? Or spend time with him on the court, and then I'll get my workout in. It wasn't like, okay, you know how it is when you're in the routine. Like, no, I have to be at the gym at 10 o'clock. I have to be done by 1 o'clock, and then I'll do everything after that. It's the routine of it. And for mine, it became fluid almost with him. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put him first with everything we're doing. So, and I couldn't watch a full game anymore, especially after Kobe. But the games, I was still watching games. I was still watching teams and still watching. But after Kobe, I just would see stuff and maybe watch a quarter here or there. But if you guys come back, I think I'll watch in the bubble because we're ready for sports.
When you say like a part of you left you,
yeah,
when Kobe died, what do you mean by that?
I was like, because you spent time with Kobe, right, in the USA and all that stuff, and I spent time with him and got a chance to know him off the court. So the guy who people started to see after he passed, like, oh, he was really a nice guy. He was doing this and that. That's the part I always saw when I saw him. For example, we were both in a celebrity softball game out here in Seattle, Richard Sherman softball game. And I never really talked to Kobe. And he actually, I asked him, I'm like, Kobe, every time somebody comes to Seattle, people think I can get him the pro-am. I know you know nothing about my pro-am or nothing about it. Will you come? We're on the field. I actually asked him on a whim. He's like, yeah, I'll come. And one of the guys from Nike, I'm not going to say his name, was like, no, Kobe, we got to get back to LA. We got to go. He's like, no, push the plane back. I'm going to go watch Jamal play. So he brought his whole family, his daughters, everybody, and stayed and watched me play. And like little things like that. And then we had a great relationship. We text a lot. Body Armor, who actually sponsors my pro-am as well. You know what I mean? So I just getting a chance to see him and just the way it happened. Like he was being a regular dad, right? You are with your parents, other teammates, and we're just all, caravan to the game. We're carpooling to the game. And for him to go out that day, I actually thought I was going to talk to him that day because one of my son's teammates' fathers has a daughter, and they were going to play in the Mamba Academy. And he's like, I'm going down there this weekend. He's like, if I see Kobe, I'm going to tell him I know you. I'm like, oh, he's a great guy. Go ahead, right? So we're at my son's tournament that weekend, and that guy's wife is like, here, take this phone call. And I walk out the gym. She's like, take it out the gym. I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm about to talk to Kobe. He caught up with him. And then he told me first that Kobe passed. So I kind of knew like 20 minutes before everybody else knew. And when he told me, I just walked back in the gym crying, like bawling, crying. And my son and his team looking like, what's going on? And then the word kind of traveled 20 minutes later. But yeah, it was crazy stuff. And just when he's with his daughter and all the kids, that just broke my
heart. There's a few games in my career that were so fucking hard to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like right after Sandy Hook.
Oh yeah.
The game after the Sterling tapes came out.
Yeah.
That was game 5. It was game 4. Game 4 because game 5 was at home. And the Kobe game. I mean, we had Boston. I found out. I woke up from my nap and I'm on the way to the arena when I found out. And like I'm walking. I get in the game, or I get in the arena, and it's like it was like a fog. I'm like tearing up. I don't even know what's happening. It felt so surreal. And the cameraman, they're trying to get like the fit pics on. And I'm like, get the fuck. I don't even know why I said this. I was like, get the fuck out of my way. Kobe just died. And I just was like, I walk in the locker room and everybody's just like crying. I mean, and then we had to go hoop like an hour later.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know how surreal it was, especially at first, when you type in his name on Google and it has August 23rd, 1978, born, January 26, 2020, his timeline of his life. And it's so surreal to me. And the world hasn't been the same since he left. Like that kicked off this fucked up year, right? Like when he passed and everybody passed, like it was just fucking, it tore a piece of me away because you know how much he loved his daughter. And I have a picture actually where we're together on the baseball field and he has his daughter right on his shoulders. Like she was always, out of all the kids, I'm sure, like they had that relationship, I'm sure through basketball as well, but she was always stuck to him. Right. So it was just like, it still doesn't seem real. It doesn't seem real at all.
Do you have anything positive to give me here?
Yeah, I got something. And I thought about this and I saw you said something about this. And this is a positive. How many finals, I'm not going to say championships, how many times do you think we should have made the finals in the Clippers Lob City era? Like, so truly believe we had a chance to go win a championship.
So, yeah. And again, this goes back to like, I'm not saying we would have like won in the finals, but I think our two best chances were our first 2 years that I was there. So that would have been years 3, 4 for you. Yeah. With those guys.
So that Houston,
so that OKC in 14. And then we lost to Houston in 15. Those were I think our two best teams. The problem with the next year, we won a bunch of games and had a home court again. But the problem was like Blake was, after the Christmas he was hurt. He had the quad tendon, then he broke his hand, and then he got hurt in the playoffs. Chris gets hurt in the playoffs. That could have been a window because of what happened with Steph though. Because right before we played, I think it was Game 4 in Portland. Right before we played Game 4, Steph hurt his knee. He sprained his knee.
Yeah, he did.
And they were talking he might be out some of the next series. And so we're up 2-1 going into Game 4, and we're like, oh, this is our chance. We got a chance.
Yeah.
And then the second half, those two guys get hurt like literally 5 minutes apart. It's crazy.
I'm gonna take it a step further. I think we should have won one championship. I think it was the Houston year, because at that time they wouldn't play Golden State, and we had beat Golden State 2 years before. Obviously, they were better.
The year before. Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought after beating the champs, because people forget when we beat the Spurs, they were defending champs, right? And then we go up 3-1, and Chris misses the first game. And I'll never forget a conversation we had.
I was just going to bring this up.
I'll let you bring it up. Go ahead.
No, you bring it up, man. It makes me sick to think about it.
So, Tommy, I don't know if he ever told you this. We're in the locker room, and we're up 3-1. This is me and JJ. It was a practice day. He said, "Fam, you didn't play in college long enough. You never been in the Final Four, right?" And I said, "Nah, I never been in the Final Four." And he was like, "Well, when we get to the conference finals, this will be like the Final Four times 100. He's like, "Wait till you see how it is, how the practices are, how much media is there, and just wait till you see this experience." Do you remember that?
And then I said that, and then I said the finals is like the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you did say it. You said the finals.
Finals is even crazier.
Yeah.
Did you acknowledge this statement after everything went down? Like was there a thing where you were like even mentally were you like, fuck, I think that?
No,
like, do you believe it jinxes?
Oh yeah, we jinxed it. No, Jamal, we've talked about it maybe once before. We haven't never, maybe once, but I think we did acknowledge like, can you believe? Fuck. I think it was right after we lost to Houston. We were like, man, can you believe like 10 days ago we were talking about the conference finals?
And you know what? I think we talked about that before Game 7.
Yeah, it was before Game 7.
I think it was like in between, and like, fuck, how did we end up here? We were just talking about going to the conference finals, right? So it was like, it was, and I've always said this, if you can simulate this on a video game and we go through that 100 times, the way it went down, 99 times I think we win. I think that was the one time we don't win. Tommy, we were literally up 19.
Yeah.
With what? Was it 8 minutes? Home. How much time was in the clock?
No, we were up 19 towards the end of the third quarter.
End of the third quarter.
James Harden did not play in the fourth quarter.
And they put in the subs.
It's the Josh Smith, Corey Brewer game.
Yeah.
And Pablo and Jason Terry chipped in. Yeah. And that was it. And we were literally up 19. You do that. If you just go from that point on, we win that game every time.
I wonder if they had one of those, those simulation things where they say they do it in sport, they do it in football, they do it in basketball, where it says what the percentage is, what the odds. It had to have been 99.9.
Yeah, 99.9. Easy. That's the one time I think we should have won a championship. But to end it on a good note, I guess, I've invested in Shoot 360. I'm not sure if you're up on that, Jay. But so we're basketball and technology meet. We have facilities all over the country. We actually just did a deal. We're actually in the Warriors practice facility as well. So it's where kids can get instant feedback. It feels like they're playing a video game while they're training. It's not the parent or trainer saying, hey, barking at them. They still get to enjoy it. It goes from beginner level all the way up to, advanced level to pros. So look out for that.
This is an app? This is an app?
And it was actually a facility. So you can go in the gym.
Oh, okay. Oh, is it this facility? Okay.
It's super cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like 6 or 7. I'll send you a video. It's like 6 or 7 right now in the country, but we're going to go worldwide. It's definitely going to be the next wave of training as well in kids because they feel like they're playing a video game, but they're getting better as well while
That's
training.
Awesome. I want to say one more thing about the Clippers because CP and DJ and I have talked about this a bunch. And actually, I talked to Matt Barnes the other day. We talked about this too. But and I've said this publicly, like we collectively, all of us are to blame for that.
For sure.
Like we did not police ourselves and sort of control our culture the way we should have. It was so good when I first got there, and we didn't do a great job of policing ourselves. Yeah. And it's fucked. And I've talked to all those guys and talking to you, like if I could just go back knowing what I know, this is a regret I have in life. If we could just go back knowing what we know now.
We would have said, all right, the maturity. Guys, get your together. This is your chance. I'm telling you what the future looks like. You're not going to get this chance again.
Nope.
Look at all of us since then, right? I'm not saying we all haven't had.
CP's had the best chance. CP's had the best chance. Yep.
CP's the only one that's had the clear-cut best chance to win a championship. Right? Yeah. So it's like, and Matt got his in Golden State, but even he said it to tell you, getting it with the Clippers would have been a totally different feeling. He had a huge role in our team. We all did, right? So it's like we were so vested in that. If that's the one regret I have as well.
Fam, I appreciate the time. Always good to catch up with you.
We have iconic podcasts every time we get together.
Every time.
You got to come back. You got to just figure out if you come back every couple of weeks. Just figure out something you want to talk about and pop on.
It's like 3 years. I'll do it like a surprise pop in, but it's like every 3 or 4 years. Me and JJ get together.
Go deep dive.
Yeah, we go deep.
Love you, bro. Thank you.
Love you too.